All right, let's go Miami Dolphins next up here. 8-9 last year. Their over-under is 8.5, so right in that similar spot from our friends over at FanDuel. Interesting offseason for Miami. Remember a couple of years ago, trading for Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
They've traded for Jalen Ramsey. They signed Teron Armstead. Over these last few years, they went for it hard with the veteran type of players. Now Teron Armstead is retired. Jalen Ramsey's been traded to the Steelers for Minkah Fitzpatrick. So a bit of a transition type year for Miami. That doesn't mean they can't win and compete, but some of the veterans that they were relying on the last couple of years, now they're coming back and resetting the roster a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I got to admit, since they hired Mike McDaniel, whose brief was basically rescue Tua, right? Like, things hadn't gone well. Offense was a mess. Tua was a mess. And they hire Mike McDaniel, and he's on the plane telling Tua, "You're my guy. It's going to be great," all that kind of stuff, right? Since that moment, and honestly, at that point, a lot of people were already writing off Tua. But McDaniel was like, "No, he's my guy." Since that moment, and since that sort of initial, how do we get Tua working? How do we create that? Since that point, I don't think I've understood what Miami is trying to do as a big picture strategy. What direction are we heading in? What is my North Star? I don't think I've understood what their approach to this is. And this offseason has been maybe the most confusing offseason to that as well. I don't understand what they're trying to create here other than, Tua's the quarterback and he's important. Let's keep Tyreek Hill in the building, even though every time things go south, he makes ridiculous statements in the media and we have to blow the whole thing up and patch it back together. They're confusing to me. Like, it's too good a team to be awful because you've got Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Like, there's still too many talented players there. But there are massive holes on this roster and, like, huge areas of what look like catastrophic weakness.
I'm not going to say I'm going to tell you that why you don't understand this. I don't think it's hard to see why they are where they are, though. As soon as Mike McDaniel comes in, they made a move to go for it. They were aggressive to go get Tyreek Hill, to get Jalen Ramsey. They were aggressive. And I'm not saying they went stars and scrubs. We oversimplify that whole idea. But they went star heavy, and they lost out on draft picks. They haven't drafted enough. That's the bottom line there. It's not, okay. They have not drafted enough players. Just like the Saints have not drafted enough players the last couple of years. Usually when you look at a team and you say, well, there's a weakness on the offensive line and they don't have enough defensive line depth and their cornerback room, the cornerback room in particular for the Dolphins looks like the worst in the NFL.
Yes.
By far. When you lose all that depth, you usually go back and say, did you draft, at least 7 times every year? And they haven't. Also, lost a first rounder a few years ago. This is when that stuff comes back to bite. So I think they're just in a reset mode. I think the tricky part of the analysis for the Dolphins is even in their go-for-it moments, 2022 and 23, in 23 in particular, I should say, they looked really good, right? They were beating up on bad teams, and they were like the Cowboys that year. They couldn't beat the good teams. Despite being faster than everybody, despite having star players everywhere, they couldn't beat the Chiefs, the Bills, and the best teams, the Ravens, the best teams in the AFC. So they still had a ceiling, and now they look worse. Now they're not as strong even on the offensive line. They're not as strong probably on the defensive line. They've had a lot of injuries on the edge the last couple of years. I would say the edge group has a chance to be really good. So how did they get here? They went for it a couple of years ago. They didn't draft enough, and now they have to replenish with youth, and they're just probably a year or two away from really having that young nucleus to build around.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some young players that could make huge differences. I mean, Kenneth Grant, I love Kenneth Grant. I think if they tap into the full breadth of what he can do, he could be an absolute difference maker for this team. If they just look at him and say, you're 340 pounds, you're going to be a nose tackle and stop the run, I think that's a disappointment. Number one, it's disappointing because I think he can do more than that. Number two, I think it's a waste of what he can do. And number three, it means he's not worth where they drafted him. Like if that is actually how they plan to deploy him, but if they let him do what I think he can do, that could be a really important pick for that defensive line. It's just so weird. Like even the sort of moves that they've made to add in name recognition are weird, right? Like you bring in a Darren Waller out of the studio, out of retirement to be your tight end. It's like, okay, I guess. Jack Jones is by far the best quarterback they have on the roster now, and that's like a sort of desperation move because the every other corner they have is a disaster. You trade away, obviously, the one good corner you had to get Minkah Fitzpatrick in the building. I actually think that was good business because the relationship had broken down so much. But it's still, let's take one good corner and replace him with one good safety who we also drafted and didn't know how to use way back in the day. It's just such a weird team.
Offensively, for the Dolphins, we've been talking about their offensive line for a few years now. Tua saves them a lot because of the quick release and the receivers as well. Like the fact that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are so fast, get open quickly, right? The pass game saves the offensive line, but they have struggled not necessarily to run the ball, but to run the ball between the tackles, to run the ball when they need to and in key situations or a short yardage. And I don't know that that's better. I don't know that the offensive line is necessarily better. It might actually be worse with Teron Armstead retiring. So there's questions up front. A lot of pressure on Patrick Paul, second-year, second-rounder. Struggled with a 44 PFF grade as a rookie. But you and I both kind of liked him. Like, we liked him in the second round, right? Yeah. He was a reasonable second-rounder as a developmental type of tackle. That's where you take those guys. But he's got to step in and be good up front. Austin Jackson's been better in the run game than he is in pass protection. So there's still this idea on third and long, it's difficult to just sit in the pocket, pass protect with this offensive line. They're not the best up front as far as the run game goes, but there's still the speed. Right? You still have to deal with Hill, Waddle, Devin Achane at running back. So it's still going to be a difficult offense to defend. But I have the same questions I had a couple of years ago. Can they go up against the best defensive fronts and actually have success?
No, agreed. I mean, I think the offense should still be pretty good. I think the passing game should be good. The passing game and Tua's quick release absolutely saves that offensive line. I think that's maybe as bad as any offensive line in the NFL, but it gets made look significantly better because Tua gets the ball out a tenth of a second faster than anybody else in the NFL on average, and will, on average, be the fastest time to release of any quarterback as well. Now, that changes quite a lot if Patrick Paul is good in year two, but that's a total unknown at this point. But I think the offense could and should maybe be still pretty solid. But, if you are, and this is the other element, like teams have begun to figure out a little bit Mike McDaniel's offense. They know where the pressure points are. They're able to put it under pressure more. If that's the case and this becomes harder and they're able to make Tua hold the ball a beat, suddenly everything becomes harder.
Hey guys, real quick, only 40% of our viewers are actually subscribed, so let's change that. Hit that subscribe button, and now let's get back to the action. Last year, the defense, I think it was top 10, I believe, in EPA per play. It wasn't. It was all right. I mean, it wasn't awful. I still think they have some questions up front. You lose a Calais Campbell, who's always really good at football. Presumably replace him with Kenneth Grant, who you mentioned. But not having Bradley Chubb last year, Jalen Phillips has battled his injuries the last couple of years. They have a chance to actually have a really good pass rush if Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, and then
Chop Robinson.
And then second year of Chop Robinson. Now you've got some, if they're all healthy, you have some depth on the edge. I have questions about the defensive tackles, but you have a first rounder there, a reasonable group of linebackers. To me, the question's all in the secondary here. I think it's the general toughness up front. They have not been the most physical defensive line the last couple of years. And then just the cornerback room, like I said, which could be the worst in the NFL right now. So there's a Rasul Douglas still sitting out there. There's still a few free agents that will sign after camp. You've got cut days. That's the place I think Miami absolutely has to look. And if they can you still might find a starter or two on the waiver wire or in a Rasul Douglas, and all of a sudden this defense looks much better.
Yeah, I mean, a guy like Stephon Gilmore is out there as well. There are players out there that would absolutely upgrade this cornerback room. Maybe not every cornerback room, but definitely Miami's. Yeah, look, there are pieces there where this could be good. Jalen Phillips is a good player. Chop Robinson looks like a very good pass rusher right now. I love Kenneth Grant. Zach Sealer is one of the most underrated defensive linemen in the NFL. Where Bradley Chubb is going to get back to, who knows? But like that, there are the pieces that group could be very good. But there are some massive critical flaws on this roster that look, even with additions like, can we bring in a Gilmore? Can we bring in a Rasul Douglas that look too critical to overcome? if this team wants to, challenge for a division, make the playoffs, do anything other than just sort of win 7, 8, 9 games and be nondescript.
Going back to how they got here, 2022, the Dolphins only drafted 4 times. Remember, 2021, they had 2 first-rounders, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips. They got Javon Holland in the second. That was a really nice haul there. But 4 draft picks in 2022, 4 draft picks in 2023. Those are the picks who are supposed to be coming into their prime now. They're supposed to be sitting here in years 3 and 4 saying, okay, here are the guys that you're building around. And Devin Achan's the only one who's really a starter out of just those 2 draft classes. That's how we got here if you're the Dolphins. So I think they have to be shrewd as far as, again, those free agent type of pickups at corner. And, they need the offensive line to come together and some of those young players to, hit the ground running more than other. They're relying on some of the young players more than some other teams.
Yeah. I mean, particularly a guy like Kenneth Grant, like they need him to be good pretty quickly.
And then all that said, there's this theoretical ceiling that they hit a couple of years ago, right? So even when things were going, Tyreek Hill was uncoverable a few years ago. Last year, he was banged up. A lot of the reports are that he'll be fine, like whatever injuries he dealt with last year.
He's out there running like 10-1 100-meter times.
And he's a fascinating player just because he's always been faster and quicker than everybody on the field. At the NFL level, as we've talked about, that's unreal. But he comes up limping like once a game, and you're like, uh-oh, is this it? Is this it? And then he comes back. He looks like he blew a hamstring, and then he's back 2 plays later. And I've always thought he was fragile, right? As soon as he loses a step or 2, is he as good? Like, he's not as good.
Right.
But I think he's fast enough right now. I think he's got a massive bounce-back season. So I think Miami's dangerous in the sense that they could put points on the board with Tua, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Achan, all the speed. But is there a ceiling to Tua's game, and is there just a ceiling to this team overall?
Yeah, I mean, the offense generally, I wonder if it has that. When they had that run for like the first half of the season where it was the best offense in the NFL, it was like historically good, it was as good as anything. I don't know that that's there as a theoretical ceiling anymore. I think the league has a better handle on what this offense is, and I don't know if all of the component pieces that were required for them to hit that ceiling still have that in them. Tyreek Hill, he's an interesting case because, I mean, at his peak, he was the best wide receiver in the NFL, right? It was like, is it Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill? He was 1-1A depending on who else you wanted to put in there. And now it's like we're talking, is it Justin Jefferson, is it Jamar Chase? And Hill's out of the conversation. But if he's still running 10-1 100-meter times, I mean, that's insane. Like, that's fast. That's like you are right on the cusp of actually competing for 100-meter, that's like legitimate 100-meter athletic athletes are running 10-1 100-meter times. So it's the complete opposite of has he lost a step at this point in his career. It's like that's as fast as he's ever been. So if that's the case, can he still do what he was doing a couple of years ago where he was uncoverable and, putting insane numbers out there and looking like the best wide receiver in football?
So that's one of the wild cards here for Miami. That and just like health on the defensive side, which they have not had. Remember 2 years ago they rolled in the playoffs. They had no edge rushers, and they went from a deep edge rush group to having the draft class of 2012 off the street trying to sack Patrick Mahomes.
Put some respect on Melvin Ingram's name.
Melvin Ingram was great 8 years ago. So if they stay healthy defensively, if they have Phillips, Chubb, and Chop Robinson, that's a legit pass rush. Zach Sealer on the interior, Kenneth Grant. Like, there's potential there. But if all those things hit, I think I still have concerns about them beating the best teams and doing it against the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the best teams in the AFC. Mm-hmm. Over-under's 8.5. Where are you going here for the Dolphins?
Under. I have enough concerns and questions about some of the moves there. By the way, what a fascinating quarterback room that is. Tua, Zach Wilson, and Quinn Ewers.
Oh, and Ewers tearing it up at camp. Got some Ewers fans out there. Michael Irvin said he's the next Tom Brady. Is that right? Is that the analysis?
Did he?
Something like that. Somebody came out and made it, this happens every year. Like Luke Falk was the next Tom Brady for some people. You just throw it out there, and then if it doesn't happen, people forget it. If it does happen, Michael Irvin, genius. Zach Wilson Reclamation Project, always interested in Zach Wilson. I'll also go under here for the Dolphins, but I see the other way if everything breaks the right way as far as health, pass rush, like their pass game and pass rush has both high end potential. I think there's weaknesses in enough other places that I'm concerned.
Agreed. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
Check the Mic is live every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so be sure to hit this subscribe button so you don't miss a thing.
The all-knowing algorithm is convinced that you'll like these videos as well, and frankly, who are we to argue?